It's time to turn down the noise and tune in to News You Can Use, the show that gives you a quick insight into the latest twists and turns in healthcare news, where every diagnosis comes with an order of side-splitting humor. Your hosts are Dr. Nick, a longtime host, innovator, and healthcare wizard who can prescribe a digital dose of innovation to cure even the most ailing operational inefficiencies. And Dr. Craig Joseph, the healthcare guru who can diagnose both patient and software glitches with equal precision, making sure hospitals run smoother than a well-oiled robot doc. So buckle up, because we're diving into the ER of excitement, the ICU of irrationality, and the waiting room of wacky wisdom. Now here's Dr. Nick and Dr. Craig.
Welcome to the month of December. I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.
This week, we'll be dissecting the latest healthcare news, unraveling the twists and turns, and making sense of some of the debacles.
Just remember, life's a lot like a breaking news story. Unpredictable, often absurd, and occasionally leaves you wondering if it's all just a cosmic prank.
This week, we take a look at capping anesthesia time and getting sleep in hospitals.
And we dive into which GLP is better than another, 2025 predictions, and pharmacy access.
But first off this week, we'll be covering the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. So just at the outset, let's be clear, murder is a crime. I feel like I'm about to quote a song here from The Clash, but I better stop at those lines. It's wrong. No, disputing that. But there's been quite the reaction. I think lots of people have got opinions. I'm sure you and I both do. I'm going to say I'm going to keep the majority of my opinions to myself, in large part because I think who am I to discuss and whatever? But it was wrong. But I think the reaction, not really that surprising to me. I think it surprised some of the folks. And then the subsequent downstream has just been a little bit disappointing, let's say. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I agree with the sentiments, I think, of Dr. Will Flannery, who's a popular character on YouTube and has done many a YouTube show and video against United Healthcare. He had some medical problems and describes in detail his experiences with United Healthcare specifically. And he says, look, two things can be true at the same time. One is that you should not murder people. Like, that is wrong no matter what they did, whether they're guilty of a crime or not. Do not murder people. At the same time, it doesn't deny, that doesn't mean that his experiences with United Healthcare are never happened, or that they don't happen over and over again, or that they don't happen with many different, most or not all of the insurance companies. I'm sure people have had bad experiences with healthcare insurance. Some are horrific, and some are just annoying.
Yeah.
But we've all had them, and as you and I were preparing for this, kind of came across the idea that, which is not new to either of us, but if you have never had at least an annoying time with healthcare insurance, it's probably because you are pretty healthy and don't use your healthcare insurance.
My response to that, whenever I hear it, is just wait. I think is fair commentary. I agree. I mean, I don't want to sort of belabor the point. I think Will is, and I think the extraordinary thing is, given all of the opinions and whatever that I've read and responses, even certainly from some of the companies, it's funny to me that a comedian, and I know he's also a physician, is somebody that just, cracks that nut. He hit the nail on the head. We shouldn't be turning to our comedians for news, although apparently that's what happens on TikTok, I believe. So, although I don't know anything about it, I'm not on TikTok. At least I don't think I am. Maybe I am.
You're very popular. Maybe you're very popular on TikTok.
Yeah, it'll be my doppelganger, because there are one or two of those. So
for sure.
All right. So moving on, I thought the timing of this was just really it left me shaking my head. But
it was suboptimal.
Suboptimal.
It was suboptimal. That's the word.
Absolutely. Yes, let's announce that we are going to cap the amount of time that people can be under anesthesia, or to be accurate, how much they're going to pay for. So if your operation exceeds the 2-hour time limit, that's it, we're out. Really? Really, Anthem? Really?
Yeah, I still think it's a little unclear. So one, your clarification is very important, right? They're
Right.
not
We're not going to wake you up.
they're not going to wake you up.
Sorry,
They're
I
simply
know
saying
this isn't really funny, but dear Lord.
we're not paying the anesthesiologist after 2 hours. I think that's what they were saying.
Yes.
And it's ironic, and the timing could not have been worse.
No.
Could not
I
have
don't
been
know.
worse.
I'm sure they can work at it.
It was excellent in terms of bad timing. If that was your goal, they certainly achieved it. Yeah, I still have questions. Obviously, I shouldn't say obviously. They reversed their
Yes.
their position.
A full day later.
It was just bad. It's just one of those things where, like, well, first of all, the anesthesiologist doesn't control the operation, right? They're the person at
Yes.
the patient's head.
Refer to Dr. Will Flannery's videos on said topic.
I mean, it's just astounding that you're going to be judging the anesthesiologist, if I understand it right, based on how long the surgery is going, when the surgeon controls how long the surgery is going. And most of the time, that's not because they're slow. It's just because they've run into complications or something's happened. I don't know. So again, it is pretty traditional. It's an excellent part of health insurance in the US, at least, to hold people who have no responsibility for something responsible for that thing. Right. I have a great example of that in my life, where I was held responsible for a hospital.
You've been held responsible for something?
It's rare, but it happens. Again, I was asked to pay this penalty because the hospital didn't do some piece of paperwork that they were supposed to do, and it was impossible for me to do that piece of paperwork. It was impossible. So this is it's another great example of kind of the crazy upside down health insurance system that we live with here.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah. Well, they did reverse it, but some months are better than others in terms of opportunity for content. This really, in this particular instance, it was just shocking, but yes, they have reversed it and know these controls and people's behavior. Moving on, GLPs. Well, so let's clarify first of all. These are the obesity drugs that everybody sorry, forgive me, not everybody, but a lot of people are taking. They're really ripping through in terms of numbers of folks. There's even talk about coverage for them. I think we mentioned them last week as the miracle drug for hair loss. You name it. I think they were.
I think that's the one thing they have not been studied for.
That's the one.
Hair loss.
As I said, just wait.
You might be right. You might be right.
But there was a study that came out just recently that compared it was a decent number of patients taking at least two different sorts. And these are essentially drugs that are combating obesity by attacking gut hormones. I'll simplify it there. And it turns out that one of them is actually better than the other. I mean, by a substantial margin. It was 47% more weight on average was lost on Novo Nordisk's Wegovy when compared against, let's see, what's the, is it Lilly? No.
Yeah, I don't know who makes it. Talking about Mounjaro.
Yeah, what's Mounjaro? Is that the?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, and actually, when you dive into the science of this, it turns out that that's possibly there's a good reason for that. It actually targets two hormones or two pathways at least. So now this horse race is no longer a real horse race because if you want, although maybe just attacking one and that weight loss is good enough, but I think that's pretty significant. And we'll get to predictions later, but I think we're going to see more of this class. Actually, I think there's more of that class of drugs in the pipeline than anything else.
It's a big area of research. If it's it's a wonder that anyone's doing research on other medications outside of GLP-1 agonists. Yeah, to your point that you made at the beginning, one of them, I'm not even sure which one now, but was studied for sleep apnea, and found a decrease in sleep apnea. And again, how do you pick apart? Well, did it help sleep apnea because the patient lost weight,
right?
And that's why, and so they tried to kind of tease that out and say, no, it seems to be having a separate effects. And so hair loss might be next. I'll sign up for it if that's the case, as well as I'm hoping this will be shown to help people get taller. Because I'm definitely open to that medication.
We do live in a heightist society, that's for sure. But one of the challenges with this is, even if you get your prescription, you're going to struggle to fill it because we've lost one or two pharmacies in the last couple of years, right?
More than one or two. There was a study that came out a couple of weeks ago. It showed 1 in 3 pharmacies closed between 2010 and 2021 or 2022, something like that. 1 in 3 pharmacies in the United States. That was here.
My reaction to this was, oh yeah, that's all the rural one, but this isn't rural, right?
Well, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And the reason is that it's hard to staff, it's hard to make money, and that there are now options that didn't exist before. In 2010, if you wanted your medication almost exclusively, you had to go to a drugstore, to a pharmacy. And now there's mail order through the insurance company. There's private companies that do mail order. There's lots of other options, but I think the main thing to be concerned about is the loss of a person that you can talk to about your medication, right, who's not your physician, right? Your friendly neighborhood pharmacist. That person is becoming increasingly a rarity. We still need pharmacists, of course, but they're super, super busy. They're supervising people giving vaccines. I haven't gotten a vaccine from my physician in probably 5 or 6 years. I only go to pharmacies.
Really taken over, yeah. And it's interesting. I saw a piece this month as well that talked about that. And there's even some question as to whether they're being kept deliberately busy so that they can't focus on some of the things that are going on, so that that they're really missing opportunities for the value add that we know that they're important to, in terms of how that comes along. I mean, I'll be honest, there's a part of me that says, well, gosh, you can just get it mail order and ship it through the mail. Although I'm wondering how much of that's going to survive in the next sort of few years. We seem to struggle with delivery of mail. You can't shoot this through the network. It's a physical package.
It can't. Well, we have, maybe there's going to be 3D printing of drugs. Maybe that'll come next. That would be nice.
That's certainly.
Oh, I was joking. You're serious?
No, they absolutely. I think I have a video in one of my future thinking presentations that even talks about that. Patient is woken up to say, hey, we see that there's going to be a problem tomorrow. We're just printing you a new drug. And I know that's a little bit out there, but it's not really, if you think about it. If we're just, can you construct molecules in the same way that we construct other things with 3D printers? Doesn't seem that unreasonable to me.
Fair enough.
I can tell.
I think we're very far away from that, because if you can just, it boggles the mind to think about that you would be able to just create a molecule. Because if you could do that, boy, the things that you could do that would be bad.
I think we'd probably be doing other things before we got to the printing little nano robots. But I think there are nano robots already. We see some of that, some pretty tiny ones.
I'm going to leave this to you. I have no idea.
You're completely unconvinced. I think
I am. I don't.
I'm getting out of my depth here, and I'm
I
going.
have nothing intelligent to say, and many
Well,
people.
hold that thought. Just
Many people have told me that when that's the situation, I should shut up. So I am,
so what
for
happened?
once, going to listen to them. I've never listened before, Dr. Nick, but I'm starting now.
Yeah, why? You're not starting now. All right. So, getting rest in hospitals. This really struck me, and I don't know, when was the last time you were in a hospital? I actually stayed overnight. I mean, have you?
It was a good
While ago?
10 years ago, maybe.
Oh, a while ago. So you, all right. So, but you've had the experience. You've got to be sympathetic to this. I mean, essentially, patients cannot catch a break. I remember, I mean, we're talking 20 plus years ago. I remember a time and motion study that somebody, they sat in patients' rooms quietly and just hand recorded people coming in and out. And the shocking number then was like 137 people in a 24-hour period. And, I remember at that time thinking, good God, and that was just people, let alone all the noise and, hey, let me come in at 2 in the, hey, I have to take your vital signs at 2 in the morning. It's, whatever, Q4 or whatever the physician has written or has been mandated. I am going to wake you up, measure your blood pressure, take your temperature, take your pulse. It was shocking, and we're still doing some of this. I will never forget. It's been a long time since I've been in overnight, and it was awful. And I was in the quieter section because I was low acuity, but God forbid you should be in a high acuity. We really, and it's such an important part of everything that we. I mean,
Yeah, well, on one hand, we say sleep is we're increasingly understanding the importance of good night's rest, and then the other hand, we don't allow it in the hospital where the sickest of sick people are. It's gotten better, I think.
I think it's gotten worse.
Well,
with all the machines that go bing. That's the meaning of life.
The study said something like a half of the U.S. News and World Report best hospitals have committees that focus on restfulness and making it.
I'm sorry. We all know what they say about committees. If you want to stop anything from happening.
Now, another thing, hear me out.
That's what Yes Minister told me or taught
me. When you get a survey after you are in the hospital, one of the things that they have asked you about on a regular basis now for many years is how quiet was the environment, right? So now that's just the patient's opinion. Who cares what the patients say, right? Apparently, the U.S. government, which is the biggest payer in the United States for healthcare, does care, and so I think it's gotten better. You don't hear as many loud pages overnight. Like they're trying to just alert staff when they need staff instead of alerting the entire hospital, things like that. So I think it's getting better, but there's still so much room for improvement, to your point. And this study showed that they could improve. I don't think, night and day, but made some improvements. And often by, I think one of the keys of this study was they involved nurses who are providing the care. One of your point was, hey, if a physician writes every 4 hours, check vital signs. Well, that probably isn't really needed unless the patient's acutely ill. And so those are the kinds of things to say, hey, can we improve this, or can we create an environment or a culture where it's okay? Yeah. It's better, but there's lots of room for improvement.
I think you're being awfully generous when you say it's better, but maybe
I'm a generous person. Everyone says that.
Yeah, you keep believing that.
All right. No one says it, but I just did. So now one person has said it.
All right. Well, please, for the love of God, turn the beeps off, the machines off. If you need to monitor, there's technology that can do this. Although I do accept when you're sleeping some of this, but I mean, I can even do it in my own setting. I have monitoring that's going on with my, wearables, and it's just, Anyway, sleep is like it's more important than what you eat. And by the way, what you eat in hospitals hasn't gotten any better, at least, again, not based on my limited experience.
I think you're right.
All right. So wrapping up for the year, it's certainly been an interesting year. I think most years are, let's be honest. Let's think about 2025 and where that is all going, and what your thoughts are for predictions. I'm going to give you. I'll pick a serious one. I think the whole concept of AI as a generic term is just going to be. We've only scratched the surface, and the idea that on that chart of peak of inflated expectations, trough of disillusionment, all of that, I don't think we've even gotten to the peak at this point of what's possible. It's a bit like the GLP agonist. We're still up and up.
Very true.
And I think there is plenty of scope. Now, all of this comes with we've got to make sure that there's sufficient oversight and so forth. So that's where I think there's, real opportunity. My sort of offhand prediction for next year is, it's just one word, it's chaos. I can't see anything else but significant chaos just based on the run up to where we're getting to in terms of some of the things. And I've heard some people say that's a good thing. People that I respect, not folks that are completely out there, but the idea that chaos is a good thing because we can try things out. I do think that comes with a little bit of a cost that is unfair on the folks that maybe we're trying this out on. But it does concern me. I'll be honest. It's good news for this program. We're certainly going to have a lot to talk about.
It's good news for content.
Yeah. Keep those ears listening, those clicks clicking. What about you?
Well, I would double your vote. Agree with you on the chaos idea. There's going to be a lot of changes, and some of them it's hard to know what's real and what's really going to happen. But I certainly think that some companies in the healthcare sector in the U.S. are going to be benefited because of their relationships with the incoming administration, not because they're the best or great at what they do potentially, but because of their relationships. So I don't see that as a positive. It's going to be positive for some companies. One thing, along chaos is just kind of talking about vaccines. I have concerns that we are going to find out. There's that term that ends with, finding out. We're going to find out what happens when you stop vaccines, either fully stop certain ones or enough people have decided that they're not sure what to believe or whom to believe. And we're going to find out, and we're going to see diseases. I'm a pediatrician, and I often joke, not so jokingly, like I haven't met a vaccine that I didn't like. There are diseases that my mentors, that my teachers when I was a resident told me about that I've never seen. Haemophilus influenza, type B, meningitis. My mentor told me that when he was a resident, not a night went by where he didn't admit a child with meningitis. Seriously.
Worry to hell with.
And if you survive, you have sequela and all kinds of problems. It's gonna happen, and it's. So that's a big worry of mine. And a predictor, I guess. I just see it goes along with your chaos idea of people who don't understand the risks and benefits giving opinions. Right. So, and to be clear, there are risks and benefits for everything.
That's exactly right. No question. And I think testing things out, that's good news. We like to test things out, but we should do that in a responsible way. I'm not sure that may be the way that it unfolds, but we shall see. As I said, we'll have plenty of content. End of the year, I will say, I'm eternally grateful for these monthly discussions we have. They always elevate my mood. I hope they elevate our listeners' mood. I enjoy them. I try to find humor in most things, including myself. And, you know, to be clear, in Craig a lot, who is he's a good egg because he endures this and listens to my drivel. And, you know, I'm grateful to have you around and to enjoy this each month. So thanks, Craig. Thank you for joining me each month.
Well, thank you, Nick. I would love to say the same. I'm in it for the money. And and just to be clear with the audience, I've yet to be paid, but you have promised me a lot of you've promised me a lot of money. And but seriously, I'm with you, and it's always good fun.
All right. Well, we find ourselves at the end of another episode and another year exploring healthcare's mysteries before they become your emergencies. Until next time, I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.